Today, we're looking at Krishna's Shamrock. Hi, I'm Adam, and I'm an ink guy. I get inks, test them, and share the results with you. Now, Krishna's Shamrock is a green ink. To make sure I have a range of experience with this ink, I do the writing samples. I put the ink into a different pen for a day. I then put it into a cross Bailey with a medium nib to take my notes for this video. Now, before we go to the writing samples, let's look at the sciencey bits. Up first is the chromatography. I agree with Vita that I've learned a lot by doing multiple chromatographies. The one on the left is done the way it's supposed to be done. I put a line of ink down and immediately put it into water for 10 to 15 seconds. And we see this very minty tone on the bottom that's pushing its way up. We start to see some yellows, a very dark green, and a very vivid blue at the top. A lot of colors have gone in to make this. The one on the right, I let dry for 10 minutes before I dunk it into water. And we see that there's a lot of green that really sank into the filter paper very quickly with only 10 minutes. We still see some of the push up. We really don't see the yellows come through anymore. The same dark green and the same vivid blue are at the top. Resistance tests are done to see how this ink can be expected to perform on the page, and more importantly, how hard it might be to clean from your pens. Now, I let the smear dry for 3 days before testing it. Looking at the highlighter, I was very disappointed with what happened here. There's a lot of blurriness and blowout that's occurring in this writing that would make me immediately say I would not use this in a note-taking situation. Water is reactivating and lifting a great deal of this ink out of the way. If you look at the very top right side, you start to see the beginnings of paper, the white of the paper coming through. It does make me think that more than 30 seconds of exposure to water could get this ink out of your pen. You might have to soak it, but I believe that water will be able to do it. Strangely, pen flush did less than water did. I can never explain the occurrence when that happens. But it didn't do as good a job. I don't know how. Now, 1/3 bleach solution completely removed it from the paper. Looking at the water, I really don't think you're going to need the pen flush or the bleach solution. I believe that given some time, water is all that it would take to get this out of your pen. For the inks I've tested, I've found an average viscosity of 2.5, with the realm of normal being from 2.1 to 2.9. Krishna's Shamrock has a viscosity of 1.6, making this a super wet ink. To find my average dry times, I use my writing samples done with the extra fine and medium nib on Clairefontaine, Tomoe River, and Rhodia paper. For the inks I've tested, I have found an average dry time of 17 seconds, with the realm of normal being from 13 to 21 seconds. Krishna's Shamrock has an average dry time of 10 seconds, making it a very fast drying ink. It really gets into that paper. Now, let's look at the writing samples. I picked this ink up in bottle form back when I ordered a whole bunch of Krishna inks. I would have ordered this regardless because I tend to enjoy green inks. To keep my writing samples consistent, I use a Jinhao 159 with a Goulet 1.1 stub, a Jinhao X450 with a Goulet medium, and a Jinhao X750 with a Goulet extra fine. Let's take a look at the Clairefontaine. We get no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather, spread, halo, sheen, and only a couple spots where some shading does happen. It gets a bit darker on the H, a bit darker on the K and the A. Some spots occur where it does show us some shading with this paper. The extra fine is a bit darker than the 1.1, about 4 or 5 tones darker, so it's quite a bit. The extra fine has no feather, spread, halo, sheen, and there are a couple shade spots that are occurring here. Like the E and over is significantly darker than the rest of the word. The top of the Q, and the top of the U are a bit lighter than the rest of the word. Lazy looks like a lighter word than the word the. Very different tones there. 6 seconds to dry. Now, medium is a significantly darker tone than the extra fine, and it has no feather, spread, halo, sheen, and other than the spot where I put my thumb down when I'm writing, obviously earlier, there's some shading that shows up there from the oils on my hand, but nothing else. There's no shade here. 11 seconds to dry. Now the scrubby of the extra fine and the medium the extra fine shows no color variation, although I got some, and the medium shows some color variation, and I got none. I don't know what that means. The smear test, I believe you could recover this without a problem if you smeared while you were writing. Tomoe River. Of course we get ghosting, lots of ghosting, and we get no bleeding, as expected with Tomoe River. The 1.1 has no feather, spread, halo, sheen, and no shade. The extra fine is the same tone as the 1.1. It has no feather, spread, halo, sheen, no shade, 9 seconds to dry. Beautiful tones of green here. So I'm missing out on the shading in this ink, and I think almost all the way through these writings, but the tone is beautiful. The medium, significantly darker tone. It has no feather, spread, halo, sheen, no shade, 16 seconds to dry. Now the scrubby of the extra fine and the medium show us no color variation, and we got none. But the scrubby of the medium is showing us halo, although we did not see halo in the writing sample. Have some warm apple cider. The smear test you could not recover if you smeared while you were writing. Rhodia. Rhodia has no bleeding, no ghosting. Don't do this to me, paper. The 1.1 has no feather, spread, halo, sheen, and no shading at all. Beautiful tone. The extra fine is a slightly darker tone than the 1.1. It has no feather, spread, halo, sheen, or shade. 7 seconds to dry. Still a great tone. The medium is a significantly darker tone than the extra fine, and still an amazing tone of green. It has no feather, spread, halo, sheen, no shade, 13 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both show us no color variation. We didn't expect it and we didn't get it. And the smear test, see, on the extra fine I think you could recover it. On the medium I don't think you could recover if you smeared while you were writing. So I wanted to see what happens with this green ink if I put it on a different tone background. And the reason for that is, in the chromatography that was shown earlier, there's the lightest yellow at the bottom and a very dark blue at the top, making this green, but can we make it a little bit more of a different color? Does it change it? We get no bleeding, no ghosting. Those two little spots, that's from the page underneath. We don't expect bleeding or ghosting here. It is still Tomoe River. It is still Rhodia. Now when we look at the tones of the ink and how it changes for having a yellow background on the paper, sometimes it even affects the shading and the tone in itself in its entirety. Now, the medium looks quite a bit lighter. The extra fine looks quite a bit lighter. The 1.1 looks the same in tone. So we do see some tone changes going on for it being on a yellow background, which is pretty nice. The 1.1 has no feather, spread, halo, sheen, no shade at all. The extra fine is about the same tone as the 1.1. About the same tone, maybe a hair darker. It has no feather, spread, halo, sheen, no shading whatsoever. 7 seconds to dry. The medium is a significantly darker tone than the extra fine. No feather, spread, halo, sheen, or shade. 13 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both show us no color variation. We didn't expect it. We didn't get it. And the smear test, but here, the medium I think you could recover. Where here I didn't think you would be able to, but I think you could recover both of these if you smeared while you were writing. Kind of a strange thing because it's the same paper. That I wouldn't have expected to be so altered. The next paper up is Hazel Notebooks. Now, I ordered these notebooks when I ordered all these inks. The Noonday Brocade Pocket Book. This is a very toothy paper. It is incredibly well behaving with all of the inks. There's like no bleeding that goes on. It's really quite amazing. This notebook I've been holding on to till I get through this. This one has some show through. This is, I'm not going to show the page. It's got someone's address on it. This is one of the Noodler's Warden inks. and it's coming, it's showing its way through. And then yeah, the Warden showed through, but this right here, this is the Noodler's X feather, and it seems to show through a little bit more. And that's kind of strange because when we're looking at these writing samples, although, different, they do behave different, I'm not really getting bleeding or ghosting. But I see a little bit more ghosting in the notebook as I start using the first couple pages of this new notebook, the last one that I have of them. We get no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather, spread, halo, sheen, no shade. The extra fine is the same tone as the 1.1. It has no feather, spread, halo, sheen, no shading. 2 seconds to dry. Great dry time for a walk-around notebook. The medium is a significantly darker tone than the extra fine. It has no feather, spread, halo, sheen, or shade. 4 seconds to dry. Now the scrubby for both show us no color variation. We didn't expect it. We didn't get it. Where it's looking lighter, that's the white of the page, or the not white of the page. There we go. The not white of the page coming through there. That's not really lighter. It's just an illusion. We didn't get any color variation. The smear test, I do not think you could recover this if you smeared while you were writing. This is Canson Bristol board. It's an artist, or Bristol paper. It's a very heavy artist paper. It's nice to do ink work and things like that on it. It does very nice. So because I like playing on this paper with my inks, I like to test it. We get no bleeding, no ghosting. I would be shocked if that bled through. The 1.1 has no feather, spread, halo, sheen, and no shade. And it's great because I've seen a bunch of inks that feather on this because it's not really made for it, although it tends to perform very well with it. The extra fine has the same tone as the 1.1. It has no feather, spread, halo, sheen, or shade. 6 seconds to dry. The medium is a significantly darker tone than the extra fine, with no feather, spread, halo, sheen, or shade. 9 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both show us no color variation. We didn't get any in the smear test. I do not think you could recover if you smeared while you were writing. And that is all that I have for the writing sample. Instead of finding inks that look like Krishna's Shamrock, I would prefer to find an ink that complements its color on the page. Now with a name like Shamrock, you can't help but put that with an orange ink to create some Irish pride. I chose Krishna's Orange because it's named Orange, so it's orange. Before I give my opinion on this ink, I would ask, if you've enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. And if it's your first time here, I would invite you to subscribe. So what do I think of Krishna's Shamrock? Now I normally enjoy green inks because of the amount of shading that they can give. This one doesn't really give the shading. I was a little disappointed there. It does give very different tones depending on the width of the nib and flow of the pen that you are using. And all of those tones are enjoyable. It is a great tone of green. It just doesn't have any shading. And I was surprised because so many greens shade so easily. Thanks for watching.